Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Divinely Dramatic by Sandra Young, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1, September 2016. To Marcy Alexander, agreeing to costume a community theater production for the first time called for an ultra special splurge. She'd savor an easy day and enjoy her friend's company instead of juggling two part-time jobs. Her lips curved as she imagined a swanky spa visit with mani-pedis and a full-body massage, which hopefully would ease these muscles strained from hefting platters of food and piles of vintage garments. The fantasy bubble burst. First, she had to figure out how to costume a cast of 8 strangers in Victorian finery. She booted up her laptop on the kitchen table in the modernized log cabin, backed by 80s dance tunes and the savory scent of her mom's cooking. The importance of being earnest, she muttered. What a wacky, old-fashioned name. By the great Oscar Wilde, her mother chimed in from the 50s era stove, where she refused help to create a vegetarian chili. When you read the script, you'll appreciate his sarcastic wit. Surrounded by the fragrances of chopped peppers and tomatoes, Pat Alexander seemed thrilled at her daughter's new project. Too thrilled. About time you got out and loosened up. You know what they say, all work and no play. She snorted a chuckle and waved the paring knife in her gnarled hand. No play, get it? Anyway, I can't wait for your dramatic interpretation. I'm betting on steampunk. I imagine they'll prefer traditional. Marcy regarded her bestie's costume suggestions, handwritten in neat cursive rows and drawn from years of expertise in managing fashion displays at the local museum. Yet this afternoon, Justine had begged her to take on full responsibility for providing costumes for an exacting period show. Personally, I'm all for combat boots, bustiers, and bustles. She twisted an auburn curl around her finger and looked up to catch her mom's smirky expression transform into a wince. The knife clattered onto the cutting board. At least she'd kept some control of the sharp implement. 2 pottery dinner plates had smashed at their feet the week before. Both were irreplaceable. Her mom couldn't create replacements. Marcy's heart twinged. Hey, my eyes are tired from reading all those notes. Let me finish chopping. She jumped up to her feet and strode toward the stove. With blurred eyes, you want to lose a finger? Her mother eyed the knife with a scowl, as if it had chosen to leap out of her grasp. Fine, take over. You cook every night, and I wanted to give you a break. She stepped aside and rubbed the ridge of bumpy nodules on her left hand, yet she continued to hover at the poured concrete counter. Oh no. Marcy stiffened, trapped in the corner. She'd have to shove past and run to avoid their next inevitable topic. She could almost hear the words rolling their way up her mom's throat. Their conversations featured a variation of hints, nudges, discussions, disagreement toward pursuing her master's degree. Listen, when you're back on the computer, check the next entry deadline for the campus in Virginia. You don't want to miss out again in January. Marcy's assured slicing rhythm misfired. She gasped as a dot of blood bloomed at the end of her index finger. Damn it. Sorry, didn't mean to distract you, her mom grimaced. I'll get a bandage. Paper towels work fine. She ripped a piece from the nearby roll. Sit down and relax, please. The tone came out harsher than intended. Lips thinned, her mother limped out of the room, favoring her swollen knees, feet, and ankles. A yellow-gold aura flared around her body, the sunbeam color in direct opposition to her apparent mood. Marcy squeezed her eyes shut and clutched the ribbon of paper around her finger. Sometimes she missed the oblivious days when facial and body cues alone illuminated a person's heightened emotions. Now the presence of an aura reinforced the growing intensity of their skirmishes about when she should attain advanced education to support her dream career of illustrating children's books. Not if, but when. An important distinction, to her anyway. Over the past week, her mom's nonverbal cues had been especially easy to read. Early September damp and chill aggravated every nasty rheumatoid arthritis symptom. Yet, instead of taking advantage of her live-in helper, she intensified the urging for her to move out and move on. Nope. She kept her voice low, buried under the thumping music. I won't leave you while the pain rages unchecked. They supported each other for years since her dad had flounced off to New Mexico. She wouldn't abandon her now. Her eyes welled and she blinked several times and blamed the pile of slivered onions. Though, darn it, Justine's unexpected costuming request and the dust up with her mom had thrown her off kilter. After dinner, she tackled the massive new challenge by visiting the theater. She shuddered at the reminder and pulled off the makeshift bandage, noting the bleeding had stopped. She washed her hands and finished dicing the squash before scooping the rest of the vegetables into the pot. Her eyes drifted closed for a few centering moments, and she inhaled the rich, tangy aroma through controlled breaths. Unfortunately, a full-on meditation would have to wait. If she had had time, she'd sit cross-legged on the Hello Kitty rug in her room to generate positivity toward her goals, but she'd barely skimmed the stack of notes to prep for the evening. While the soup simmered, she went through them and also searched the website of a nearby costume shop in South Bend, Indiana, her friend had recommended. In between jotting ideas, she glanced at the door in nervous anticipation of her mother's return. They were both creative people, and neither liked conflict, but they also shared a dominant stubborn gene and somehow had become locked in a no-win showdown. Banishing the unacceptable thought, Marcy leaped up to stir the chili, releasing a blast of spice into the room. She tasted the broth, added a dash of salt and pepper, and resumed the research. Within a half hour, her own notes filled additional pages as the initial scatter of words transitioned into costume sketches. Women posed in long, sweeping gowns with huge, ridiculous sleeves. Men strutted in dandyish slim suits and towering top hats. The costume, she decided, would reflect the exaggeration and parody. Engrossed in the whimsy of the work, she opened the script and started to skim through the descriptions and dialogue. The first paragraph left her smiling. By the second page, she giggled at the wry comments made about marriage and class distinctions. Snarky, witty humor, her favorite type. Her mom slipped inside the room and without a word popped breadsticks into the oven. A buttery, yeasty scent mingled with the chili powder tang. Marcy peeked up, thankful for the pop music filling the awkward silence that lingered between them. She pushed the computer aside and stood. I'll fill our bowls and the water glasses. Usually, she would have completed all the dinner-related tasks by now, but she'd gotten caught up in the research. Thank you. Her mom's voice retained an edge of reserve as she headed toward the silverware drawer. They executed a polite dance around each other to set the table. Marcy began to sing along to the tunes to lighten the mood. She raised her voice and mimicked dance moves to Walk Like an Egyptian and earned the ghost of a smile. To her relief, after they sat and dished up the food, their usual warmth seeped back into the room. They fell into conversation, avoiding touchy topics in the favor of the upcoming costuming adventure. My goal is to have fun with the concept and also stay true to the gay 90s era. Marcy gestured with a breadstick toward her sketches, pleased with the work. At first, the pencil had felt a little foreign in her hand after 2 years of consciously squelching her artistry. Yet the creative flow had reemerged, awakening the familiar immersive buzz of pleasure. When I started at Divine Vintage, I realized how hinky some of the community theater costumes were. But in 3 years of gathering basic knowledge at the boutique, I've never even assisted Justine with a show. She bit off a chunk of bread, chewed, and talked about it, and talked around it. Geez, I wish they weren't doing a period piece. Her mom stretched to snag a napkin from the ceramic rooster holder. Can you blame her for wanting to go to California with her handsome hubby for a few weeks to consult on his screenwriting project? No, of course not. I'd have preferred to ease into this, though. She sighed and opened the oversized, glossy research book her friend had passed along. At least 1895 fashion is iconic. They call these leg of mutton or balloon sleeves. She indicated a fashion plate illustration. The fabric on the gown billowed out a whopping 8 inches between the shoulder and the elbow. Her mom's gaze roamed over the sketch. Balloon is a fitting description. She could take flight in that getup. My lady, you are cleared for takeoff. Marcy attempted a plummy British accent and then returned to her Midwestern drawl. Hopefully I'll find something similar at the theater or be able to supplement with rental pieces. She slapped the book closed and collected their empty bowls. You may not believe it after my moaning and venting, but I'm actually getting kind of excited about this new challenge. Onward to the theater. With multiple ideas fluttering in her head, 10 minutes later, she squeezed into her vintage lemon yellow bug to travel the rural highway to LaPorte Little Theater. Best to tackle the beast immediately and bolster her confidence, as rehearsals had started the night before on Tuesday. Perhaps the new outlet would also satisfy her creative energies until she could commit to the intensive 2-year on-campus illustration program. A semi zoomed by on the 4-lane road, shaking the frame of the car in the looming dusk. She gripped the wheel and slowed to enter the outskirts of LaPorte. The dreary industrial zone was lined with factories, but soon she'd reached the reviving antique store focused downtown. The storefronts were mostly closed in the evening, yet the brick planters continued to burst with blooms on every block. At the edge of the historic district, she parked and strode into the church-turned theater before the 7 o'clock start time. The whitewashed brick building has stood in the corner lot for nearly a century. She attended several productions over the past years and noted they'd since updated and painted the compact entryway. The box office and refreshment areas were encased in a soothing Lake Michigan blue, the walls lined with photos from plays and musicals. Her stomach jittered at a burst of laughter, filtering from the attached performing space. She peeked through the velvet curtain divider, but didn't glimpse anyone before entering between the rows of chairs set up in 3 sections. The basic cream walls were accented by small lead glass windows, and any aspects of a church had been eliminated. Pews had been replaced by cushioned metal chairs at some point. Ahead, a wide stage spanned with 5 steps leading up from ground level. Her eyes adjusted to the dim interior, and she spied a figure seated at a table, most likely the director, Mike something. She glided toward him in her high top, smoothed her hands over her geometric patterned tunic, and uttered a cheery hello. The man's broad shoulders jerked before he glared up, with flashing eyes matching coal black hair above a rugged face. She pressed a hand to her racing heart. Can I help you? He grated in an irritated baritone. She tried to reply, appalled when her lips quivered. Marcy Alexander, I'm here to help costume the show. Justine's soothing voice echoed in her head. The director's a sweetie. His frown deepened, far from exuding sweetness and light. The folding chair squeaked as he crossed tanned arms over a broad chest, straining the plaid shirt over his biceps. You're here to help Justine? No, I'm taking over for her. Apprehension stirred butterflies in her chest as his expression remained dark. Didn't she tell you she's heading out of town to consult on Jackson's project? The image of her friend's Oscar-worthy begging flitted through her mind as the man shoved a hand through his cropped hair. He stared at her for several piercing seconds and huffed out an audible breath. I didn't get around to returning her call yesterday. So, Marcy Alexander, have you ever handled costuming before? No, her voice pitched high, landing as a question. But I've learned a ton working at the Divine Vintage Boutique, and Justine left me a research book and lots of notes. To her dismay, his aura flared crimson. Down to earth, honest, passionate. She categorized the basic traits automatically and considered turning on her heels and leaving him speechless, or else he'd curse her all the way back down the aisle. He bumped back the chair to stand. His height towered beyond her own 6 feet. Great. Not only do I have to direct a chick comedy, I have to deal with the freaking costuming. He practically growled the words as he pivoted in a red haze and paced a few steps away from her. Wait, she was doing the fool a favor. Just because I haven't done it doesn't mean I can't, she fumed, anger erupting through the rapid tapping of her right foot. I'm fully prepared to be true to gay 90s style. He swung around, emitting annoyance and another hot rush of color. Apparently, he didn't tune into the warm, fuzzy side of his aura either. Hey, Mike, a male voice sliced through the tension hovering between them. What's up? She whirled toward a trio of young people, thankful for the interruption. They swarmed past her to surround him. The director returned the greetings, and his tent calmed and disappeared. She again pondered, slinking away, but he jabbed a thumb in her direction. Guys, meet Marcy. Justine's been called out of town and can't costume, so she recruited help. From the second string, she could almost hear the unvoiced criticism. The group shifted focus, no doubt recognizing costumers can enhance or hinder on-stage sex appeal. She halted and tapping her foot and pasted a pleasant expression on her face. Hi, I'm Will, medium height, lanky, with brown hair, glasses, and a thin, angular face. Chase, playing the role of Algernon. This one was tall, blonde, drop dead cute, and sported a killer smile with a dimple. Cool flirt vibes. I'm Lindsay. Thanks for jumping in to help. The girl beamed. She was petite and pretty with light brown skin. Waving dark hair fell below her slim shoulders. They all appeared to be in their early 20s compared to her 26, the director even older, but Grump could be adding to his perceived years. Happy to meet you all, and she was. I'll take sizes and measurements later. All of our measurements? Chase sent her a sexy grin. Yep, a flirt. She lifted a brow at the innuendo, but before she could respond, the director assumed the role of adult. Keep it in your pants, hotshot. Here come the others. He pointed across the room and rattled off names she immediately forgot. 4 older cast members waved and uttered hellos before he continued, all business. We have a lot of ground to cover. Let's start where the ladies enter the sitting room. 5 actors headed toward the stage. The others took seats. Apparently dismissed, Marcy did the same, slumping to indulge a sulk. What the heck was with his attitude? She didn't deserve a brush off and had agreed to donate her precious time to volunteer. She'd stay only because she didn't want to damage her friend's reputation with the theater. Plus, she definitely enjoyed rubbing her costuming competence in his annoying, scowling mug.